Hello and welcome to the Talk Villa podcast. I'm your host, Samit Paul, and our pre-season schedule is underway as Aston Villa picked up a 5-0 win over Walsall at the Bescot Stadium on Tuesday night. A double from Brian Madjo and goals from George Hemmings, Luka, Lynch and Aidan Borland sent us on our way, with Unai Emery changing almost his entire lineup at half-time to share minutes across the entire matchday squad. It has to be said that it was a thoroughly enjoyable start to our pre-season. I thought Villa looked very tidy, very sharp in possession, and I think we produced a really positive performance. Now, of course, it is just the beginning of pre-season. Not getting ahead of myself, not getting excited about it, but we've made sluggish starts to pre-season in the past, in previous years, so this was a really positive and enjoyable performance. We'll go with a slightly different format over pre-season, as rather than picking out my usual 5 key talking points for each game, there was actually quite a lot to discuss from this game, so it makes more sense to break it down into 2 halves and discuss what and who caught the eye in each 45 minutes. So obviously if we start with the first half then, and the big talking point from that was the double from Brian Madjo. Villa are currently embroiled in a legal battle with FIFA. They are preventing the 17-year-old from being registered and made eligible to play for us in competitive games until he turns 18 in January. Now, we are awaiting the outcome of that case, which was held on July the 1st. But in the meantime, Madjo is obviously available for friendlies, and he didn't waste any time in making a positive impression. I thought he showed really great strength, physicality, he showed sharpness, and obviously calm finishing with the goals that he scored. And I just think in general, he looks a real handful in leading the line. There's moments where he was shown really impressive physicality, and that's not a surprise given his frame. The sharpness of his touch and movement was quite impressive to watch. And as I say, the composure that he showed with his 2 finishes was really impressive. So you can see why Villa have moved for him early. And so hopefully we get a positive ruling soon after the case was heard at the start of the month, as I said, and we'll no doubt see more from him through the course of our pre-season schedule, and hopefully he can keep building on what was an impressive first outing of the summer. Meanwhile, both Modou Keba Cisse and TJ Carroll, I thought they both looked really assured in possession, in building our play from the back. There were moments where they sort of tried it a little bit too much and put teammates under pressure, but I thought the passing in general was really good. They gave us a solid defensive foundation, so I thought those 2 stood out in the first half. And Kosta Nedeljkovic returned to the Bescot Stadium and put in his annual impressive display in a Villa shirt. I thought he looked really sharp, and Brian Little was absolutely loving him on Villa TV, co-commentating on their game. He was loving his marauding runs forward down the right flank and the pace that he was showing, and just a willingness to get forward and offer support to Leon Bailey. And I couldn't agree with him more. I thought he was really good. He had an assist to add to his night's work, and it just remains to be seen, I think, at this point now. Is he going to finally be able to convince Emery that he can fit as part of his squad and he can play a role as Matty Cash's backup and competition for him this season? Or are we simply in the same position as we have been in recent summers? Is he essentially just playing to put himself in the shop window and get a move elsewhere? I think he's got enough about him to at least get another loan deal somewhere. But again, I've said it in previous summers, I think there's a player there, and at 20 years of age, he can only just get better with development and improvements to his game. And there's no better manager than Emery to do that. And I'm just hoping that he can see something in him this summer to keep him around, and hopefully we might see something. But at the same time, if a team comes in with a good offer and we think it's acceptable, then I'm sure we'll hopefully make a profit on him if he does move on. I thought Ross Barkley was excellent as he pulled the strings in the deeper midfield role, and I thought that was a really promising sign, as depending on what else we do in the transfer market this summer, I'm sure there's probably more movement to come in midfield after losing Tielemans, but having brought in Joao Gomes. I thought Barkley was really good in this game, and he could be tasked with a more prominent role this season, so it was good to see him look confident and sharp on the ball in possession, making us tick and getting us up the pitch. And then speaking of midfield solutions, another youngster that caught the eye in the first half was George Hemmings. I thought he showed his potential. Aside from his really well-taken goal, I thought it was a smart finish from him. He showed really good positional awareness and tactical understanding to find pockets of space, and he broke at pace on a number of occasions well in a really impressive display. So he was one of the players that I picked out as one to watch in pre-season. We've obviously seen bits of him with the senior team last year. I think he's just got a really bright future ahead of him, and if he can keep building confidence, string some important and positive displays together, then hopefully we're going to see much more from him this season. Moving on to the second half, and in the early stages, I thought because Villa was in such a commanding position at half-time with the lead, it looked as though we were just going to sit on the lead, get some valuable minutes for those coming on, and Emery changed almost his entire lineup to try and see out the game in comfortable fashion. But Luka, Lynch and Aidan Borland had other ideas. I thought both of them looked really bright as soon as the second half got underway. They were efficient in possession, they looked a threat, they were really positive, they played with intent, and then they both found the back of the net to wrap up a positive performance. There was a significant amount of good fortune for Lynch as his deflected effort looped into the back of the net, but there was absolutely no luck involved for Borland, as I thought his finish was the pick of the goals, outside of the boot from just outside the box, curled it beautifully inside the post into the back of the net, and I thought that was a fantastic finish, and he looked really, really good in the second half. Tristan Rowe is another player that I want to give a shout out to. I thought he was outstanding. He showed his versatility to switch from playing at fullback in the early stages of the second half to centre half when Emery made his final few changes. I thought he put in a really composed shift, and similarly to Nedeljkovic, I hope that that's grabbed Emery's attention as he looks to establish himself in the plans of the Villa boss in the upcoming campaign as well. So many of our youngsters impressed in this one, and that was really good to see. And then it was our boys from Brazil who added to the joy of the evening. Alisson came on in the second half and he had an incredible run within minutes of the restart. He burst forward through the middle of the Walsall defence with some eye-catching pace to create a dangerous opening, which I think he actually should have taken the shot on himself rather than look for the pass. But there were flicks, there were tricks, there was a glimpse of what he can offer this season. I just thought it was great to see him, importantly I guess, to put in a 45-minute shift and get through that and look a little bit more robust. But also we saw the flair and the skills that he's got just in glimpses, nothing too major at the minute, but I think it was a positive start for him this summer, and hopefully he's got a big year ahead of him. As I've said, I'm massively rooting for him. I'm fully invested in his journey, as I was with Buendia before him. I haven't had greatest of luck with the likes of Sanson and Nedeljkovic and Berenacea in the past, but Alisson is the next one up, and hopefully we're going to see a lot more from him this season. He was joined by his compatriot and new signing Joao Gomes after the break, and I have to say that I think he looked right at home in our midfield already. There was some silky passages of skill and play that helped him to emerge from pressure with the ball. He kept us ticking over with possession with just really intricate and tidy passes. There were tenacious challenges to win possession back, and overall, I just think it was a really promising first impression from him. He's going to hopefully establish himself as a pillar in this team moving forward, and the more time he gets in pre-season playing and getting used to Emery's demands, the better for him. And so it was really good to see him get some minutes in this game. So although it was a brilliant return to action, 5-0 win, Emery and the players will obviously be fully aware that this is just the start of an important process over the next month or so to get ourselves ready for the real deal. It's obviously PSG in the UEFA Super Cup first on August 12th, and then the Premier League season starts shortly after. But it's a great way to kickstart our summer. We'll hopefully see plenty more from our talented youngsters, as well as their more senior teammates, with Emiliano Martinez, Marco Bizot, Victor Lindelof, Ezri Konza, Pau Torres, John McGinn, Boubacar Kamara, Evan Gassond, Johan Manzambi, Ollie Watkins, Tammy Abraham, and any other additional signings, all still to come into the team. So really impressive, really promising, and hopefully we get more of that in the coming weeks. So what did you make of our win over Walsall in our opening pre-season game of the summer? And did anyone in particular catch your eye with their performance? Let me know your thoughts. If you're listening on YouTube, leave your comments below. For those listening to the pod via Apple Podcasts, Spotify or other means, please head over to talkvilla.substack.com and get involved in the conversation over there. So that is a wrap on this episode of the Talk Villa podcast. I want to say a big thank you, as always, for taking the time to have a listen. Please do subscribe to the pod or channel depending on where you're listening. So that's either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcast from. Give the episode a like and leave a positive review if you've enjoyed it. And there will be plenty more content over the summer as I will continue to react to transfer news, speculation, and of course to each and every pre-season game that we play. Sign up to the Talk Villa Plus newsletter on Substack for ad-free Villa news, opinions and analysis, all of which is delivered directly to your inbox. And there is also an option of a paid subscription for bonus content. As I said, all the details will be in the description of this podcast, but for more, please go to talkvilla.substack.com and subscribe over there. So, Villa are off to a winning start in pre-season. Unai Emery will likely be very pleased with what he saw from his squad in this one. It's Porto away next up on Saturday night, and that will no doubt be a tougher test as we look to step up our preparations. But hopefully, as I mentioned them, we'll welcome back a load of senior players for that one who either didn't feature in this game, i.e. the likes of Marco Bizot, Pau Torres, Boubacar Kamara, who were perhaps held off from this game. I'm not aware of any injury issues. Doesn't seem to be anything that's too concerning on that front, although Pau wasn't seen in training over the past few days. But I'm hopeful that they were just left out and they're getting ready to play on Saturday, as well as others. We wait to see who participated at the World Cup, return to the fold and when, as well as any further new signings, with Alejandro Garnacho being heavily linked with a move to join us in the past 48 hours. I'll be back on Sunday to discuss the Porto game and any big transfer news that pops up between now and then. But it's a winning start to pre-season with a convincing performance from Villa. So enjoy it, villains, and as always, up the Villa.